Hey, there we are. Hey, everybody, it's Jackie Luqman.
And I'm Abdul Shahid Luqman.
My little baby lock is over here sticking out of the side, peeking at folks. Hey.
And we'd like to welcome you to Coffee, Current Events, and Politics, the most dangerous show on social media.
Yep.
We'd like to say hi to Chanel and Aletta.
Hey.
And all of you who support us and join us. We're going to take a few seconds or maybe a little bit of time in order for you guys to, you guys to who haven't joined us yet.
Yep, to join.
To join us. If you got to run to the bathroom real quick, do that. And take the time out to invite your friends.
Yep.
Share this live stream and let your friends and those who are that you come in contact with. Why Luqman Nation, Coffee, Current Events, and Politics, and why the Luqmans are the most dangerous show on social media. And I'd like to thank Jackie for allowing me to open this time, because she said, you need to talk more.
Yeah, because people think that I do most of the talking. They think that you're just like eye candy, and I mean,
stage mom too. I was called that, yeah. Especially with the midterms. I've earned the nickname of being the stage mom.
Yeah, because
I sort of was, like, really.
No, you weren't sort of. You were.
Yeah, I was the stage mom.
Because people were. So like last week, we were planning to do our regular Friday segment on Loud and Clear. We just figured we figured they would probably do a post midterm segment that they might want us to do, and then we would do the regular Friday one. Well, what had happened was. We got a call either Monday afternoon or Tuesday morning asking if we could go to Baltimore and do the Real News Network show, and asking if we could go and be on a panel as the midterm results came in. The panel would be from 11 p.m. to 1 a.m. in the morning. Hey, Veronica over on YouTube. And at first I was like, I don't know. And I told him about it. And Stage Mom over here was like, we're going.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I don't even know how we're going to do this, because normally when we go on a trip, we have to get a sitter for the dog.
Yeah,
Brewski has his own sitter, Miss Kim, who, oops, sorry, don't mean to scoot. Yeah, there we go. So Brewski has his own sitter, Miss Kim. We take Brewski to Miss Kim's house whenever we go out of town. Miss Kim has a lot of other dogs that Brewski plays with and little kids that he really likes. But we couldn't even get Miss Kim to watch him, so I had to call the hotel. I mean, the people at the Real News Network were real cool. They, got us a hotel room to stay in and everything. Had to call the hotel, make sure they were pet friendly. They did, so we pack up the truck, put the stuff in the truck, pack up our overnight stuff. Throw the dog in there, go down to Baltimore, go up to Baltimore, rather, do the Real News Network, and on our way back, Wednesday morning, we had breakfast at the hotel, and as we were leaving, we had just got onto 295, and then we got a text message from the producer at the Real News Network, saying, hey, you guys, thank you so much for coming. Are you guys still in town?
Right. Because they wanted us to do the morning segment, the post midterm show.
Right. So then we're, driving down 95, coming back, and then we get a text message from RT asking us if we could do the show that day.
Right.
And I was like, we're on our way back from Baltimore, and I don't think we're going to make it by noon, because before I've always been at noon. And they're like, oh, well, we have 3 shows.
Right.
So which one can you do? So we're like, okay. And then we did leave in the morning, so we were like, we probably can make the noon show. Turns out I ended up being on a panel and on RT, and I'm sitting there he's driving, and I'm telling him, dude, I don't know how we're going to do this. And he's like, you better tell them yes.
Yeah, we're going to do it. Yes.
So we rush, get home, dump the dog off, then rush over to RT, to the R2 studios. Turns out we're on a panel with Wilmer Leon.
Right.
Wilmer asks us to be on his Sirius radio show on Saturday. Then we find out that earlier in that day too, that Loud and Clear was doing a post midterm show that they wanted us to be on.
Mm-hmm.
So then we had to leave RT,
Right.
go over to the Sputnik radio studios, and this was Wednesday after we were at the Real News Network Tuesday night. Wednesday, we leave RT, go over to Loud and Clear, over to Sputnik, do like, how long was that segment? Was it an hour?
Loud and Clear?
Yeah.
It was about an hour.
Yeah, it was like an hour. And then they wanted me to stay, but I actually had to go to work.
Because we have real jobs.
Because I had to go home and log in, because I work from home on Wednesdays. So that's how we've kind of been able to do some of this stuff. Mm-hmm. Like, if it's raining and you can't work because of the weather, then you can come with me. And I always want you to come with me. But usually it's just me. And that's, I'm here to tell y'all right now, when you see me by myself on a lot of these things, it is not because that's the way I want it to be. That's not the way we set it up. It's because he has to work. And when you see me like on a panel or on somebody's show, it's either Monday, Wednesday, or Friday.
Right.
And that is because those are the days I am able to work from home, so I can get away for for like an hour and a half and do this stuff. He can't, because he drives a truck. And if he can call into a show,
which I've done once or
which
twice,
you've done, I mean, if he can pull over on the side of the road, I mean, he has literally had to pull over his truck on the side of the road so he can call in, and the guys that by any means necessary are great for doing that. You know, I'll give him a time and he'll make sure he's in a place in between, like dumping loads or picking up a load, where he'll pull off on the side of the road and we'll do like 20 minutes.
That just sounds so pornographic.
It does sound a little full of dumping a load.
That's what we truck drivers do. We just go from place to place dumping loads.
Oh, dump a load. But yeah, so I mean, so like that's why we do kind of the stuff we do. So, you know, the people who ask us to do these things, they don't know that backstory. So unfortunately, sometimes they just ask for me. And when they do, every single time, I always ask, can my husband participate? Sometimes they can accommodate and sometimes they can't.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, one of the things that I wanted to say, that even with, a lot of the opportunities that we've been given, trust me, folks, we are humbled by it.
Oh,
we are very humbled by it, because we never thought, and we understand that, maybe what we're experiencing might, is small potatoes to some people, but for us it's a big deal, because when we first got into it, we never expected anyone to really pay any attention to what we had to say.
Nope.
What our opinions on things are, and so we just did this because, we had something to say, and we wanted to basically create a forum for who we considered the voiceless, and we included ourselves in that. No one was listening to folks in our economic in our economic place. So we was like, you know what, we're going to try to be the platform for the voiceless, like I said, was included us. So trust me, folks, we are humbled by it all. We're humbled that you guys come and tune in to us when we schedule these live streams. We don't take any of it for granted. And I just wanted to add this too, is that that I personally am very excited when they because when we went to RT, people were apologizing to me. I'm sorry, we can't get you on, and we don't have room for you, and I kept trying to tell them it's fine. As I made one joke when we was at the Real News Network, and one of the young producers, she was being overly apologetic to me because she couldn't get me on. And I told her, I said, no, you don't understand. When she's on the panel, I telepathically communicate to her. So we made a joke out of that. But I said I telepathically communicate to her. So my thoughts is also coming out there too. So, so anyway, enough of that. We see that a couple of you guys got on. So look, we'll get the social media horn out of the way. Look, subscribe to us on YouTube, like us on Facebook. If sometimes you want to break from the politics, we have a page set up for you. It's called Friends Who Like Coffee, Current Events, and Politics in Luqman Nation. There is the place where all of you guys can just go and take a breather, veg out,
goofy stuff.
Yeah, digest some silly things, some goofy stuff. And even some of the serious stuff is pretty light compared to what we normally deal with. We do try to educate even in the Friends page. But we kind of pick and choose where that is. And we also have those of you who love just mainly history. We have Brick by Brick that Jackie hosts, and we also have those of you who like stuff a little raunchy, which is Pit Bulls and Politics.
Really
so
raunchy.
yeah, so the thing of it is, like, look, I got a video on there that she's like sort of like a comrade in arms, and it's called "Shut the Fuck Up."
Yeah, that is so great.
I mean,
over on Pit Bulls and Politics.
Pit Bulls and Politics.
You gotta go look at that.
Right.
That is so great.
And some of you are familiar with her, but but yeah, she's like a comrade in arms with me, and so we try to have these platforms. Now, mind you, we don't have a staff. It's just me, Jackie, and our producer when we can get him, George Hardy.
George Massey, otherwise known as Keir Hardy.
So it's just us three,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of you guys have sent us ideas and have sent us stories, and please continue. I mean, we can't know everything, and we try to keep our ears to the ground,
Mm-hmm.
but we're not privy to everything that's happening out there. So you guys, wherever you are. If you feel that there is something worthy of discussion and that you want to forward to us, please do send it to us in our messaging. We'll try to get back to you as quick as we can. And who knows? We'll discuss whatever you want to discuss next on Coffee, Current Events, and Politics.
Yeah. So, okay. Let's talk about voting, shall we? Because this whole... I think we're kind of down a little bit. We've come down from election fever. I hope that our election fever has come down, and we've had some really for me just really messed up and ridiculous conversations with people about voting. I think people fetishize voting to a certain degree, to the point where we only focus on voting in presidential elections and in midterms. That's it. And somehow people believe that if everybody votes on in the presidential election and the midterms, then everything will be all right. And that has never been true in the history of anything ever.
Not at all.
Voting has never ever solved every problem. The voting is not this silver bullet that people are making it out to be. Right? Now, we're not saying that voting is not important. What we are saying is voting is not the most important thing we can do as citizens in this society. It never has been. I mean, every major social change that has happened in this country has happened because people organized around an issue that they felt negatively impacted their lives, and they mobilized to change that issue. The Civil Rights Act being the most basic, common, easiest example I can think of. People, you do realize that the Civil Rights Act wasn't voted on, right? I mean, that wasn't like a ballot initiative. The Civil Rights Act was not on anybody's ballot anywhere. The Civil Rights Act was passed because black people got sick and tired of living under the fascist white supremacist government of the United States of America, in particular, the overtly fascist government of the Jim Crow South. And let's not just limit it to the South, because we still have to deal with the sundown towns and the racial discrimination that existed in public accommodations and in housing in the Midwest, in the West, and in the North. So the Civil Rights Act came about because black people got tired of being discriminated against, and they took to the streets and they boycotted and they protested and they picketed and they dealt with the fascist expression or the fascist law enforcement arm of the government, which was the police, and their dogs and their water cannons and their billy clubs. And we pushed politicians to draft legislation to address racial discrimination in this country, legal racial discrimination. That's how the Civil Rights Act was passed. it wasn't like a Democrat ran for office on the Civil Rights Act platform. That's not what happened.
Well, since that you're dealing with the civil rights era, we have to remember that black folks voted overwhelmingly for John F. Kennedy. So John F. Kennedy went into office, and he wasn't as committed to the civil rights legislation.
Exactly.
So we were to take what people are saying today, and let's be clear, a lot of this criticism, a lot of this bullying that comes from the so-called pro-voting crowd is aimed directly at poor black people.
Yes.
Yes. Let's be clear about that. And it's the only time that people pay attention to the black community. It's the only time that the Democrats pay attention to the black community. It's the only time that all of you pro-voters and stuff out there, and many of you are elitists. Many of you are elitists. Many of you are not living in the projects. Many of you, are basically, somewhat in another income bracket than the folks that you're bullying on, or the folks that you're picking on. So if we wanted to take the civil rights era that you just brought up, black folks overwhelmingly voted for John F. Kennedy. John F. Kennedy has shown in office that he wasn't as committed to civil rights legislation because he didn't want to alienate the South. That it took people in the streets, as you said, it took the civil rights movement to get in the face of government. See, this is the problem that we have with the just vote crowd, is that voting is a tool, true, but voting is not supposed to be done alone. What I'm saying is that voting is not supposed to be you vote and then you go home and then that's it.
Right.
Voting is just one tool in your toolbox.
Right.
In order to affect change in the society. So when John F. Kennedy proven that he wasn't committed to civil rights, so then Martin Luther King and others said, well, then we have to go into the streets. We have to force the government. So it wasn't just voting.
Right.
They had to go out there and agitate for change. When John F. Kennedy, unfortunately, was assassinated and Johnson came over, the pressure increased.
Right.
So then it wasn't just voting. Johnson took over after Kennedy was assassinated. But then it was the Democrats knew that if they wanted to put this behind them, mind you now, you still had a lot of Southerners who were Democrats.
Right.
They were fighting against the civil rights legislation. You had black people that was agitating more for civil rights. And so this was causing a problem for the Democrats.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was causing a headache for the Democrats. It was causing a headache for Lyndon Johnson, who not only had to deal domestically with this civil rights insurgency, as they call it, and that's just the middle class. The civil rights was basically a middle class black movement. Then they had to deal with the poor blacks who opted for black power movements.
Right, because they were honestly kind of left out of the civil rights legislation that was written.
And they were left out. They were basically ignored too by the middle class black civil rights movement.
Right. This is why you had the unrest in a lot of poor black cities around the country after the Civil Rights Act was passed, because the Civil Rights Act didn't address the issues that poor black people face.
So then you're Johnson, and now you're leading this country, who not only has a civil rights insurgency, but also poor blacks are getting involved, but they're not opting for the nonviolent movement.
Right.
They're opting for the by any means necessary movement. Then you got the white young people who are getting into counterculture activities, being hippies and and stuff. And then you got the Vietnam War, and you got this large growing anti-war movement against the Vietnam War. So you're Johnson, and you're in a country that's basically ready to implode. Right. So what do? Well, we got to start dealing, as Johnson said, we got to deal with the nigger problem.
Yeah, and that's what he said. That's what he said.
So what happened is the fact that Johnson, they had to put this behind him. This was a mess for the Democrats. It actually was such a mess for the Democrats and created such a headache for Johnson that Johnson was like, I ain't running no more. I will not run as your president.
This job no more.
He said, I will not seek re-election as your president. But again, it wasn't just voting.
Right.
You know, so the government had to be pushed to do those things. And I think that part of the narrative that's being that we see today is that you have people that say vote blue no matter who, which I think is a dangerous message. It was a dangerous message. It is a dangerous message. And you have other people who lie and say, well, I don't care who you vote for, just vote. Well, I do care who you vote for.
Yeah, I do too.
You know?
I mean, but just the idea that people come to the discussion about voting, from such dishonest places, right? Like people who have already decided that people who have decided that they do not want to vote anymore. And a lot of those people have come to that decision because they have voted for Democrats, they voted for Republicans, and their lives have not changed in a significant way. I mean, people who come with this, I don't care who you vote for, just vote argument. First of all, no, these people who don't vote, especially poor black people who don't vote, aren't stupid. They know that when people tell them that, they're lying. Right. And we know that people who say that kind of foolishness are lying. You're going to tell somebody, I don't care who you vote for, just vote. Well, if that's true, why are you mad when 18% of black men voted for, which one was it? Was it Cruz?
Yeah, 18%,
in Texas?
Yeah, voted for Cruz.
18% of black men voted for Cruz in Texas.
I think 11% voted for Kemp.
11% of black men voted for Kemp in Georgia. And what? Like
17% voted for DeSantis?
DeSantis. I mean, Florida, right. and black people are losing their minds. Oh my God, black people ain't voting right. Black men usually vote right. Well, what is this voting right business? I thought you said all you wanted me to do was vote. See, every other day of the year, black people make this argument that black people aren't monolithic. We all don't believe the same thing. And you hear this argument about black people from black people all the time. We're not monolithic. We all don't believe the same thing. We all don't follow the same politics. We all don't believe the same thing spiritually. Well, how come we can talk about the fact that we're not monolithic every other day, right? But on election day, every black person better vote for your candidate? Come on, people.
And the fact that that your black authenticity is questioned.
Right. The black people who voted for DeSantis, they can't really be black. No, they're not monolithic. They're that section of black people who prove right what we've been saying, that black people are not monolithic. And that's one part of the discussion that's really dishonest. Right. And that poor black people, they see through that shit, y'all. When y'all come with that, I don't care who you vote for, just vote. You do care who people vote for. And stop lying and telling people that you don't care.
And I tell you what poor black people see too. And again, we're in that number, And I see and I tell you what poor black people see. Poor black people see the hypocrisy. They see the hypocrisy of voting for officials, namely black officials. Now let's take D.C. for instance, because all politics are local. Right. So we're going to deal with D.C. We have a mayor, Muriel Bowser, who just won her second term. Now, if you live in the DMV area and if you follow Washington, D.C. politics, you understand that Muriel Bowser has not really been a friend to those of us in Ward 7 and Ward 8. And those are the poorest and blackest wards in D.C. Yep. So she hasn't really been a friend. I mean, she has backed and enacted policies that really is not in our best interest. Ward 7, Ward 8 overwhelmingly voted for Initiative 77, which sought to raise the minimum wage for people who are in the restaurant industry so they don't have to solely rely on tips. Right. Well, we were told that we were stupid and didn't know any better, and so the city council decided to overturn the vote. How undemocratic is that? Right. Especially coming from a district who's always talking about how Congress always step on their rights and how they don't have self-determination and everything. Well, they turned right around, led by this very white Phil Mendelssohn, who was given money by the restaurant industry and lobbied hard by the restaurant industry, who led the fight along with Black Anita Bonds and all the rest of them. Now,
Black Dion Reader and Black Muriel Bowser.
Now, all of these people won re-election except for, I think, Dion Reed. She didn't win. But the other ones that went against the interests of black voters have gotten reelected again. So now now during the midterms, just last Wednesday, when the elections were going on, Muriel Bowser, who really didn't pay much attention to Ward 7 and 8, sent an army of volunteers through our neighborhood. Jackie was at work. I was home. And I had to call her at her job and tell her that our streets had just been invaded by a bunch of green shirts with Muriel Bowser for mayor signs. I mean, it had to be like 50 people going door to door, making sure you get out to vote. We had 2 vehicles in our driveway, and the person asked me, did I need a ride to the polls? And I had to point to the 2 vehicles that we got in the driveway. He said, okay. Why am I bringing this up? I'm bringing this up because they didn't give 2 shits about what was going on in our ward. I mean, backing policies, allowing Walmart to giving all these tax breaks to these businesses,
and then letting Walmart back out of a deal that would have brought jobs here.
Right, then abandon us. The fact that all of this development in other wards is going on, but yet in Ward 7 and 8, we're being priced out of where we live, because right around the corner from Jackie and I, they have $500,000 homes. You know what I mean? So now the plan is that they want to close. We're right around the corner from us. They're already shuttering the housing, the apartments that poor black people are living in.
Right
now, they're being pushed out. They're boarded up now, and they're making way for more affordable housing. So now, here comes Oprah. Here comes the rest of them talking about, you dishonor your ancestors. If you don't vote. Well, these folks were voting, and guess what? They were voting, and then you know what happened? They lose their homes. You know what happens? They get priced out their neighborhoods. You know what happened? The developers get paid more attention, because not only do the developers vote, they don't vote. What the developers do is they put money in the coffers of these politicians, and that money trumps the vote of the poor people. And you think that the poor people don't see that? So then on election day, now you want to pay attention to them and come around and talk about, let's get out the vote. Why? So you can further fuck me in the ass?
See, listen, all this bullshit people keep talking about, black people don't vote. Black people are on the bottom of the economic rung. And let me back up. Let me start this what I have to say with this. The idea that black people's voting patterns is somehow some type of pathological problem, and we are worse at voting than any other group of people, that is such a white supremacist, racist idea. I don't even think black people who shame black people for not voting understand that they are approaching this conversation about black people and voting from a really white supremacist, racist viewpoint. Because if you think all white people vote, then you're an idiot. I mean, there really is no other way to say that. In the recent presidential election, there were all these white people, old ass white people, who came out and said, I have never voted before, until Donald Trump ran for election.
That's true.
And I felt like he was for me, so I felt like I had something to vote for. So you mean you think that all white people vote? You think all Asian people vote?
But that's the thing. See, that because we brought this up earlier. No one never shames the Asians, because we don't even see them at the polls.
But dude,
and we have plenty of carryouts in our neighborhood, and them Asians live right above the carryout.
And so they live in the same district, and we never see those folks at those polls. So you mean to tell me I don't see anybody writing any think pieces about where all the Asians voting? And we don't say this to disparage any group of people. We're just saying for those of you folks who believe that for black people voting is this silver bullet that we are taking for granted and we're not using, you don't even understand the perspective that you're coming from this conversation into is just a really fucked up perspective that is really white supremacist and racist and bullshit, and it's ignorant.
You know, we was laughing about it before the show, and we were talking about, you know, the way that some folks come at us and come at poor black folks for not voting is like all we doing is smoking weed, you know, shooting up the neighborhood, you know, having babies and stuff. And they be like, look, don't y'all understand that global warming is going to destroy the planet? Fuck that.
Fuck that.
You know what I mean? Riding around and getting people pregnant and stuff. Oh, you know, we got Trump. Yeah, fuck Trump.
Fuck Trump.
Yeah, pop, 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 you know. And I mean, we laughed about it because that's the way it comes off. It comes off like folks who are poor don't care about what's going on, and that is not true. First of all, we don't even, you know, politicians don't even engage us.
Exactly.
We spoke on this show plenty of times how Barack Obama responded to the black community as opposed to how he responded to the white voter electorate. He respected them.
Right. He talked about policy with them.
But then you go to Harlem, and instead of talking policy with black folks, you know, it was another Bill Cosby-esque type.
Pull your pants up.
Pull your
pants up and don't have a bunch of babies.
Right. Tongue lashing and finger whip.
Irresponsible fathers.
Right. And all those things. So, I mean, so that, you know, Obama did that. But this is how the black community has always been confronted. There have been few exceptions, like in D.C., you had Marion Barry and others. There's been few exceptions of politicians who not only engage the black community, and I say the poor black community, but also try to do things policy-wise to help uplift the poor black community. But a lot of others, and there's more of the others that don't even engage the black community. I mean, we have in D.C. Called ANCs.
Right.
And these
advisory neighborhood.
Right. And these people are supposed to represent the neighborhood. They're like your first line as far as engaging the politics in D.C.
Right.
And here it is. A lot of them don't even let you know what's going on. A lot of them don't even have meetings or anything like that. And if they do have meetings, it's on the middle of the day when most folks are at work. So they could say, oh, I had the meeting, but nobody showed up.
Right.
This is by design.
Right.
You know, so now, all of a sudden now, they're catering up to the money class. You're catering up to all of these out-of-town yuppies that's coming in here getting these well-paying jobs, building all of these houses. Let me tell you something. Do you know that D.C. now has a glut of high-priced housing on the market that nobody's renting? Because they overbuilt. Because they were expecting more people, you know, these more yuppies to come in to buy up all of these condos and stuff. And guess what? They overbuild. Yep. So now they got a bunch of empty condos just sitting around, and you can Google it and see that we're telling the truth. They're just sitting around. Now they're sitting around and talking about, damn, we hate to put poor ass black people in these things.
But we're gonna have to.
Yeah, what are we gonna do?
Lose. Oh, we can't lose all our money.
Right.
See, that is what happens when black people vote for a politician just because they're not Republicans. Right? This is part of the problem. This is part of the issue with the vote blue, no matter who, part of this conversation about voting. You can't tell an oppressed group of people to vote blue no matter who when the blue candidate doesn't give a damn about the people on the bottom of their base.
Right. Exactly.
Muriel Bowser in D.C. doesn't give a damn about the poor black people over here in Southeast and Northeast. She does not care. She didn't care enough. She wanted our votes. That's why she sent all those damn volunteers
that she
out
paid
here
like $50
Tuesday
a
afternoon.
Piece. Yeah, $50 a piece, which was a small.
I mean, she could send these people over here to make sure we got out and voted for her, but she doesn't send any volunteers over here to see what the needs of the community are.
Exactly.
Because we live in a community where a lot of people are retired. So a lot of people, they're not going to go to a whole lot. I mean, they're retired, they're old, they're sick, they're tired. Shit. Yep. I mean, they don't send anybody over here to check on these people. I mean, so it's like people who do this shaming of black people who don't vote. Like you said, they also don't want to engage these people about why they don't vote. No. Because if they did, they would find that their arguments, a lot of people's arguments for not voting are actually valid.
Exactly.
So they can never get to doing the work of addressing people's issues with what they're not getting met through voting, because all these people do is focus on voting for one day. That's all they do. After election day, people are just sitting online pissed off because they know some black people who didn't vote. And there is an article with an opinion piece, I think, that was posted on CNN about how do we get the too woke to vote crowd. How do we get the too woke to vote black people to vote? You know how you do that? You address the issues that people have with this fucked up system. That's what you do.
That's all this.
All this shaming people that black people do with all these dumbass arguments. And, you know, we do appreciate all the opportunities we get to go on other outlets to deliver the Luqman Nation message. But right here in Luqman Nation, we always gonna keep it raw. We can't talk anywhere else the way we talk here.
And we forget to mention that the too woke to vote folks weren't always too woke to vote.
Thank you. Come on now.
This was a conscious decision that they made not to vote. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because we all came up in the American school system and we all got indoctrinated the same way. So like look. Jackie and I are not against voting, so let me just put that out there as a disclaimer. We're not against voting. We voted. All right? So her and I personally voted during the midterms. Won't tell you for who.
Nope.
But
that's
we did.
None of your
but
damn
we
business.
did vote. So we're not sitting here saying that you shouldn't vote. But what we're also saying is the fact that maybe it's not the too woke to vote people who have a problem. Maybe it's the system that created them that is the problem. And we never want to address the system. We never want to address the institutions that are so dysfunctional that they create the too woke to vote crowd.
Exactly. And then you've got the vote fetishes. The votes, what do you call
fetishes?
The vote fetishizing people who like, you know, you voting. That's what you have to do. That's the least you could do. That's your service as a citizen. But they don't want to address the issues that the too woke to vote crowd actually have with the system. I mean, right now in Florida, they're still doing a recount. They're not even doing the recount. They're still counting actual ballots that they keep finding all over the damn place.
Right.
They just found a bunch of uncounted ballots in a mail facility in Florida.
How about that? Yeah.
And you got people who are telling poor black people who have not been served well by this system at all, regardless of who's in office, and people have figured that out. That's why they're quote-unquote woke. I know it's an overused term. I know. I get it. But people have woken up to the realization that in the past 10, 12, 16, 20 years of my life, I have voted in every election since I've been eligible to vote. I have voted. I have voted for Democrats. I have voted for Republicans. I've voted for mayor. I've voted for aldermen. I've voted for the president. I've voted for the sheriff. And damn it, my life ain't changed one bit. As a matter of fact, it's gotten worse. It has gotten worse. Why am I still voting? And then with the advent of social media, people are learning that these problems don't just exist in their community. It's all over the country. To the point where the system is so broken, they can't even keep up with ballots. They're finding ballots in a mail facility that they have to now go count. And these vote fetishizing people are telling poor black folks that they gotta vote for a fucked up system like that because their ancestors died for the right to vote.
Now this is the thing, because well, you know, it's funny because this is the thing. Every time this comes around, we always hear about, you know, this shaming with the ancestors.
Oh my!
Well, this is what I say about that. First of all, poor black folks. And poor black folks, since we're on that subject, poor black people have a responsibility first to themselves and to their situation. The ancestors aren't here to deal with this system now. We are here to deal with the system. So the first responsibility is to ourselves. Now, the thing with the ancestors is the fact that the ancestors, let's put it this way. They say, well, we're dishonoring the ancestors. Well, how about the ancestors just didn't die for the vote? The ancestors also fought and died so we wouldn't have to continue to deal with racism. But yet we're still continuing to deal with racism. In some situations, we're worse off than our parents were. Then in some instances, we're worse off than our grandparents were when it comes to certain things. That the systemic racism that has continually to erode these institutions that we somehow rely upon. is becoming more and more anti-black.
Right.
You know, and you would think in 2018 that wouldn't be so. So when we talk about honoring the ancestors, well, honoring the ancestors is, well, hell, we need to catch a break from white supremacy. That's what the ancestors want to die for. I didn't expect my great-grandkids are still dealing with this shit. You know, so when we get up here and talk about this honoring the ancestors, well, first of all, we're voting for now.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
We're dealing with the political system now. We can't change anything for the ancestors. They moved on. So I understand the symbolism, but that's the problem. Black folks got to stop living in the symbolism and start dealing with the reality. You know, yes, it feels good to talk about doing something for the ancestors. But I think if my ancestor was around today, they'd be like, nah, you need to change the shit for yourself.
Exactly.
I'm all right. You know what I mean? Yeah, I'm all right. You need to start changing it for yourself. And I think that that's where we need to go. Now, here we are. The midterms were Wednesday, right? Tuesday. Midterms was Tuesday. Here we are Sunday. And not yet had I seen a green shirt on my street since Tuesday.
Gone.
Not yet has I looked on social media and seen Bowser, who did win re-election. I did not see Merrill Bowser sit up there and say, well, I'm going to have a town hall meeting. And, you know, and you know, really start to address it. Nope. You know what she did? Oh, I thank y'all for voting for me. And that's it. I'm going to continue to screw you all. You know what I mean? The fact that this is all, this is what we mean to this whole voting process. All we are numbers.
Yep.
That's all we are.
That's all.
And the thing of it is the fact some of us, I don't care if you call us too woke to vote or too woke whatever, some of us is just tired of playing your game. And basically, and that's what a lot of y'all are mad about. A lot of y'all are mad about because some of us are just tired of playing the game. And, you know, we just don't want to play anymore. So we picked up our marbles and we went home. And you talk about, oh, there's something wrong with y'all. Y'all too woke to vote, whatever. But we're tired of playing the game because we've seen our parents play the game. We've seen our grandparents play the game. And we've seen, look, my children are adults. And they seen me play the game. And so what happened is they like, damn, you know, I could look at a blaxploitation film from the 1970s, and my neighborhood still look like that.
Still looks like Camden. Still looks like that.
Yeah. I mean, look, I take a movie.
Philly still looks like that.
I watch Superfly from 1972, or look at any other blaxploitation film from the 70s or late 60s, and see all the crumbling infrastructure and the abandoned buildings and stuff. And my grandchild is like, was that taken yesterday? Because damn, I walk outside my door, it still look like that.
Yeah, you should not be able to look at a film from the 70s and see a crumbling, poor neighborhood and be able and a 2 generations later kid look at that and go, hey, that's Philly.
Yeah, there you go. Right, that's North Camden.
That's Baltimore.
Right.
Come on.
So the thing of it is, and this was after being shamed on voting for 40 years or more. And so what we're saying here on Luqman Nation is the fact that if you're going to shame people, well, first of all, stop shaming people.
Yeah.
And if you're going to promote the what can I say? If you're going to vote, promote the virtues of voting, then don't stop there. This is all we're saying. Don't stop there. Like after the midterms, Jackie and I sat on the same platform and we said, look, now that the midterms are over, now that it's done, the voting is done, you know, now what we have to do, whether your candidate gotten there or not, now what we have to do on every local level is to organize and put heat under their asses and let them know that this is what we want you to do. I don't care if I didn't vote for you there now.
Exactly.
So if I didn't vote for you there now, so now that you're there, you still work for me. Exactly. So you know what? So this is what I want you to do. This is the agenda we want you to push. This is what we want you to push. But see, those of you, especially who go to black communities and talk about the virtues of voting, you don't never push that. So you're just as part of the problem of seeing our community as just numbers.
Yep. So Lisa Webb over on YouTube asked, do we think a hold your vote protest should happen? Now this is my personal belief. I don't think we've talked about that at length, but this is my personal belief. I think for the national party, for like the national DNC, hell yeah, stop voting for those people. Stop voting for all these people that the Democratic Party puts forth for president, the establishment. Don't vote for them. But down ballot races, in the midterms, judges, council members, sheriffs, school board members, supervisor of elections, every local and state governor, every local and state election, vote for those people. Because see, that is where people feel the effects of their vote the most.
Yeah, locally,
right?
yeah.
Locally. But at the national level, this is my personal thing. I'm still kind of up in the air about what I'm going to do with my vote for president in 2020. I'm certainly not going to vote for Donald Trump. But I'm looking at the Democratic candidates. And not the candidates, because they're not candidates yet. I'm looking at the group of people who are potential candidates, and I feel right now like I don't want to vote for any of those people. I will more than likely do what I did in the last election and vote for a third party, because I really do believe we need a viable third party in this country on a national level. But listen, I understand that for some people in battleground states, in this fucked up electoral college that we have, which is a holdover from slavery, and we need to get rid of that. But we're not there yet, so we got to work with what we have. I mean, so I think how we handle our vote on a national level looks different for different people, which is why we don't like to tell people what they should and should not do. I'm just saying how I feel. But to piggyback on what you said about the ancestors, I mean, the thing about the ancestors that kills me, what's going on, James Casserly over there on YouTube? The thing about the ancestors that people use that kills me, it's like they reduce the work that our ancestors did to just dying for the right to vote. Our ancestors died for equality and freedom for oppressed people, in particular black people.
Yeah.
Our friend Robert Bulato sent us a video of some history of black soldiers in the Philippine-American War.
Yeah, the Spanish-American
War. The Spanish-American War. See, I don't know as much war history as he does. He's the one who will get you on the war history. But I didn't even know this. Black soldiers who fought in the Spanish-American War were under an edict to kill every Filipino boy 10 years old and older. And the black soldiers disobeyed that order, because they would be damned if they would do to another group of oppressed people what was done to them. Black soldiers who fought in the Spanish-American War deserted and went over to fight with the Filipino soldiers. I mean, there is, you got to watch that video. It's on our page. It's on Coffee, Current Events, and Politics. And it's also on Brick by Brick. Our friend Robert Bulato sent that. So, I mean, those are our ancestors. You know, our ancestors fought with the Mexicans.
Yep, sure did.
In the, was it the same war? The Spanish-American War? Was it before then?
Might have been before then.
It was before then. See, I told you, I suck at war history. I'm really bad.
Yeah, we wasn't at war with Mexico in the Spanish-American War.
Okay, so it was another, which war was that?
That might have been the Mexican-American War.
Okay, wouldn't that have been obvious? I told you, I suck at that. But black soldiers, I have a hard time remembering the dates and the names of the wars, but I remember I remember what I read, what happened. My brain works in really weird ways that way. But black soldiers fought with Mexicans against. That's where the whole Buffalo Soldier thing came. I mean, black people. Thank you, Scully. Encyclopedia Abdus. He is. He totally is. So our ancestors fought on behalf of freedom and liberation for oppressed people against the oppressors everywhere.
And this is the reason why Jackie and I were so upset with some of you Negroes who took the line of being against the economic refugees. That's what they are.
That's a great description
of the economic refugees that were fleeing from Honduras and Central America. And how so many of you Negroes, and we call you Negroes because Negroes is an American-made product. And so when we say Negroes, we're talking about the mentality.
Right.
And so the mentality is American-made. Some of us had to really fight against that. And we had to remove the barcode that white supremacy stamped on our brain.
Ooh.
So we had to remove the barcode off of there. So we actually had to go in there and operate and take that barcode off. But some of y'all, but some of y'all still got the barcode, and so so the Negro was an American-made product, and some of you was operating on that, and so to find out that the economic refugees that was coming. Remember the economic refugees from Katrina. Remember they consider even though they were American citizens, they call them refugees. Remember the economic refugees from Haiti. They all look like you. But yet you're sitting up there talking about how you're talking about illegal and legal, and you're using the descriptions of your oppressors and your conquerors. This is white supremacist labels. These were the people that came and drew lines in the sand. But yet you Negroes, y'all bought right into it. But try to remove the barcode, and maybe you could free yourself from that kind of stuff.
Fire on fire, fire. Look, I mean, so this whole issue that people have, if you don't vote, you're not honoring your ancestors. You know who's not honoring our ancestors? The very same people who shame black people who don't vote, who will not get involved in any black ass organization the day after election day because they don't want to deal with these so-called too woke to vote people. Listen, voting, like you said, is just one tool in the arsenal. It is just one. What you do the day after election day and leading up to the next election to not only educate people on politics, on social issues, on the economy, this economic situation black people are faced with. A lot of black people, I think, don't know the breadth of the economic situation we are in, and that is by design.
That is definitely by design.
All of this misinformation about the political system is so completely by design, and the miseducation of black people about our place in the system and how our place in this system, poverty is manufactured. People aren't poor because they're lazy. Poverty is a manufactured condition in society. It doesn't have to exist, but in order for capitalism to remain viable, and in order for capitalists to continue to make obscene amounts of money, there has to be a class of people who are considered poor. So people need to be educated about these, great concepts that you and I know because we travel in the same circles, right? You know, because some of you, not all of you, I don't want anybody to get offended, not all of you, but some of you were awakened to some of this stuff in 2016 by Bernie Sanders. That's great, but somebody had to wake you up.
Right,
that's the point. That's the point I'm trying to get to.
That's right.
Somebody had to wake us up. Because I was one of those vote blue no matter who. I was one of those straight Democratic. Yes, I was. I sure was. No, because the Democrats are better than the Republicans. The Republicans are just... And then I found out the history of black people in voting, and where it showed that black people at one point voted mostly for Republicans. And then when the Republicans screwed black people over, then black people started voting for the Democrats. And then when the Democrats screwed black people over, then black people went back over to the Republicans. And so each party has benefited. There has been a president elected because of the vote of black people at least 4 times in the history of this country. I mean significant. As a matter of fact, I think what
you're saying is they couldn't have won without the black vote.
Could not have won without the black vote. As a matter of fact, one president, I think this was Teddy Roosevelt. There was a massacre. We talked about this a little bit on Dr. Wilmer Leon's show. There was a massacre. There was a massacre in Elaine, Texas. This was during the Red Summer of 1919. Where there was a military base there, and there was a bar in the town of Elaine, Texas. And there was a fight in the bar, and the bartender was killed or something like that. White man. The townspeople blamed the black soldiers in the nearby military base for the riot and killing the black man. There was an investigation done. The commander of the unit of black soldiers accounted for every single soldier in that unit. They were in their barracks that night. But I think it was Teddy Roosevelt who didn't do anything about the issue until after he was elected. Why did he wait to do anything about the issue until after he was elected? Because black people voted for him. And when black people voted for him and he won election, you know what he did? He dishonorably discharged 126 soldiers from that regiment. And then years and years later, like in 70 something or other, the case was reopened, and a further investigation was done, and it was found that those men were framed, and they had to be posthumously given honorable discharges, but they were dead. But by then, their families didn't get any benefits.
Well, that's the injustices of white supremacy. It's like one of the major injustices of white supremacy is to commit that type of injustice, and only for the victims not to receive their justice until after they're dead.
Right. Exactly. And then you got these people who don't know this history, don't care about this history, honestly dishonoring our ancestors by telling black people who are impacted by this history that they're the ones dishonoring our ancestors because they don't vote. What are you talking about?
And it still goes to and when you really look at it, it is still attached to the whole respectability political thing. It's like, if you want to be, good citizens, then you have to vote. Or, you don't want to be seen as this. Or you don't want to be seen. And basically it goes back to when we were growing up. And a lot of older folks in our neighborhood used to always, and they were well-meaning, but you don't want white folks to see you do that.
Yeah,
In fact, Wanda Sykes, the comedian, on one of her stand-ups has a very, very funny routine about that, because it was common in black community that a lot of our older ancestors that who we were raised by, that was their measuring stick. Don't let the white people see you do this. Don't let the white people see you do that, and all this kind of stuff. And like I said, it was well-meaning. Now we understand that it's not so much important about what white folks see, but then that's how it was, and we don't ridicule that. That was, our ancestors grew up under a different time, and so they tried to pass on values as best as they could. But part of this shaming on voting and stuff goes back to that. You don't want white folks to see, or you don't want white folks to this and that. And that. So it's all about not what we want. Right. It's all about not addressing our issues. And that's the reason why the whole ancestor argument comes up. That's why all this other stuff comes up, because it's really not about addressing the issues of the poor black people who constantly get shattered on every time they vote.
Exactly. Regardless of who they vote for.
Mayor Bowser has not sent anyone in our neighborhood to knock on our doors and thank us for a vote, even though we
can't even get a thank you.
We can't even get a thank you. Nothing. Because she got hers now. Yep. And so now the thing of it is that this is where we're at with solutions. Luqman Nation, we're about solutions. And we gave the solution. The solution is, okay, you don't want to see me, I'm going to see you. You know what I mean? I'm going to see you. And we're going to agitate, and we're going to do all of these things. In D.C. and in other places, the affordable housing is a problem. Yep. Well, then the people, all of us, need to get together and say, look, now that you're back in City Hall, this is what we want. Right. You know what I mean? And guess what? If you don't run again, because I think D.C. has term limits. Yeah. I think they do. So she can't run again.
Thank God.
But what we can do is say, either you pass this agenda or nobody you back is going to get...
That's what we do. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, nobody you back is going to get in office.
Exactly. And see, this is the kind of thing that the vote fetishers don't want to do. They don't want to get behind a proactive, well thought out, well defined black agenda for politicians, for us to present to politicians. Understanding completely that we're not going to get everything. But if we never ask for anything, if all we do is go vote and we never demand anything for that vote,
then we know we're going to get the Obama effect. That's what I call it.
Exactly.
That's right. Hey, look. Tell Brewski I want 25 cents for anybody who uses that. I want that copyrighted. All right, but the Obama effect, and that's what's going to happen if we don't, as a community, go down there and be in their faces. And this is from the ANC. Now I'm talking about DC local politics, but whatever the political structure is in your area, go be in their face and be like, look, now that you're here, we are not going to let you rest. We are going up here. We are going to organize. We're going to chain ourselves. And Jackie, we said this before. We understand that not everybody can get arrested.
Right.
But some of y'all going to have to sacrifice that. Some of y'all, I'm going to give you a story, real quick story. So since we're talking about history, I was just, well, not really researching it, but I came across a video from the History Channel about convict leasing.
Yeah.
Now,
that was fascinating.
I'm not going to go through the whole thing because I think we need to do a whole show about how white labor, and black people, how they basically work together to overturn one of the most evil systems in this country. We're going to talk about that one day.
Yeah.
But right now, I just want to say this. Convict leasing, which was a very brutal system that was using black people basically as slaves,
right?
Under the guise of criminal justice, right? And they were using this. Now, for all of you Negroes out there that is under the understanding or got it in your heads that it's immigrants that lower the wages, or because I used to think that too. I'm not going to front. I wasn't always this way.
Sure, I
used to believe it. But then, when you keep an open mind and you start to educate yourself and you start to learn and you start to have an open mind, you understand that you're not always right on all the issues. And this was something that I had to understand, that I was on the wrong side of the issue. But history had taught me that what was driving down the wages, that these capitalists and the wealthy elites were using the convict leasing system to drive down wages and to undermine and undercut the unions. Now, this is what happened real quickly. In Tennessee, they were using convicts to work in the mines of Tennessee. And those white guys wasn't having it. The white union workers wasn't having it. And you know what they did? They didn't just vote. They didn't just march. They grabbed guns. These white union workers grabbed arms and fought against the militia of Tennessee and won. And they freed the black convicts who were working in those mines and put them on trains to Washington, D.C. as a message to the federal government that we're not going to allow this system to undercut free labor. The labor of free men. That's how they put it. The labor of free men. We're not going to. What they were saying was they were rejecting slavery, and you wasn't going to use slave labor to undercut the labor of free men. And they sent these. And now, what I found fascinating was none of these white guys who took up arms against the state. Now, this goes against all you people who always talk about nonviolence all the time. We'll get into that too. But not one report of these white men hurting these black convicts. Not once did these white guys hurt these black convicts. And you know why I believe they didn't? Because they understood that they were being used as pawns by the wealthy elites. Right. And they understood that it wasn't their fault that they were being used in this way. Unlike you Negroes who are sitting up here talking about, oh, they're going to take our jobs. They're going to take this and they're going to take that.
It's the immigrants taking our jobs. It's the immigrants driving down wages.
And what's sad is you Negroes supposedly got more education, more information than the white guys in Tennessee had at the time. Yet they did not see the black convicts as the reason for their situation. And so they freed them. And guess what happened? After Tennessee abolished the convict leasing system, all the other southern states around started to abolish it too, because they did not want that happening where they were at. And the federal government took action and abolished, made it illegal for a convict leasing system to be done in the United States. So it wasn't just voting. I'm sure all those white guys voted. I'm sure they all voted. And when they seen that the politicians they voted for was screwing them over, then guess what? They took to arms. Right. See, that's the real Second Amendment. See, that's the real Second Amendment. See, the Second Amendment says that when your government is not working in your best interest, you have the right to overthrow that government. And
let's be clear about what these white miners did. They didn't take up arms and turn those arms on those convicts.
Right. They
took up arms and turned the arms on the people who were using them both. Knowing full well that the convicts couldn't, because they weren't giving black men guns. So they took up arms and they fought the people who were causing the problem. But we don't do that now. Now we blame the immigrants.
Right, now we're blaming the immigrants. Or we're blaming poor black people.
Or we're blaming poor black people. Meanwhile, the rich white elites are still doing what they've always done. I mean, it's just that history is so incredibly important to where we are now. Mm-hmm. But I just want to go. But thank you for that. We are going to do a show.
Talk about that.
We're going to do a show
because labor is very important.
Labor.
Right, we got to talk about black labor and have white labor. How they at times cooperate with each other to make great significant changes.
Yeah, and some of the problems that have existed and still exist with the labor movement and black people. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we're going to do a whole show about that. Yeah. But another one of these things that these vote fetishizing black folks say about, black people just need to vote and vote blue no matter who. This whole black people aren't monolithic thing. Mm-hmm. We talked a little bit about that earlier. But here's the thing that...
Hold up. So we're going to do the second point, right? Let's come back to that second point. We'll take a break.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, we're going to take a break.
Yeah, we have to take a little break.
And then we'll come back with our second point and the second half of the show.
Yes, we'll give you all a little breathing one. We're going to try to be better at that. So we'll be back in about 2-3 minutes. Right. Y'all hang on. We've got more coming. Hang on. We'll be back. That dog is snoring like he has worked a job. He's ridiculous. Puppy. All right, we're back.
Yep, we're back.
Just as we were taking a break, I heard that dog snore. And I was like, what did he do all day? He didn't do anything all day to be snoring like he chopped down some trees. He's a mess. But okay, thanks for coming back. Thanks for hanging in with us, you all. This is the second half of Live and Coffee Current Events and Politics in Luqman Nation. And tonight we're talking about voting and all the bullshit narratives that come with it. Mm-hmm. And we're talking about those narratives not just to disparage people who believe very strongly that everyone should vote. Because, look, voting is important. We just want to make it clear that voting is not like this on the pedestal. It's not like the ultimate thing we can do in this society to affect change. Mm-hmm. The voting isn't the only thing we should do in this society to affect change. So a lot of the problems that we have with people and some of the narratives that they come to the discussion about voting with, especially in regard to black people, black poor people, are really just problematic. So we're talking about that tonight. And then we're going to talk about what people should do if they're really concerned about people voting. Mm-hmm. So we were just going to start talking about the idea that every other time of the year we're quickly say, well, black people aren't monolithic. We don't all believe the same thing. Right. But then when these exit polls came out, right, and there are these think pieces and opinion pieces out in CNN, and there's another one out, I think, in the Boston Globe about black men need to vote right, and this kind of, because like 18%, between 11 and 18% of black people voted for Republicans in the three major gubernatorial races, Texas, Florida, and Georgia. The interesting thing about these articles is there's all this criticism of the way black men voted. But these articles completely ignore the 18% of black women who voted for, who was it?
I think it was like 18% of black women that voted for DeSantis.
For DeSantis in Florida.
Right.
So first of all, I really need for us to stop just us, and by us I do mean black people. We need to stop acting like black men are a problem all the time. That's getting on my damn nerves. It really is getting on my nerves. When you can see, like in Alabama, where 97% of black women voted for Doug Jones, and then like 90% of black men voted for Doug Jones, but the whole narrative was about black women saved Alabama. Like those 90% of black men just weren't there. Black people need to stop. I get black girl magic. Okay, it's nice, it's cute, it's yes, black women have been overlooked by this white supremacist system. But as a black woman who wouldn't even be doing this thing without this black man, I'm not gonna tolerate black folk ignoring black men anymore.
And allowing white people to do it, because see, what happens is that there was a segment on The View, and I rarely write in the comment sections on anything, but it forced me to write in the comment section. Not that anybody's going to care, but Joy Behar said to Meghan McCain about black women saving. Using Doug Jones, black women saved us from Roy Moore, and that prompted me to really write in the comments. I'm saying, well, black men too, because black men voted like over 90%. I think black women, the percentage of them voting for Doug Jones was only a couple of percentage points more than black men. Right. So how is it that black women get all the credit? It's the same way in a lot of things. And I have always said that I believe that hurt Stacey Abrams. I think it hurt Stacey Abrams because a lot of black men in the black electorate felt like that because the way that it was framed is that her victory wasn't a victory for them. Right. It wouldn't be a victory for black men. It would just be a victory for women. Yeah. And I think that turned off some men, and I know that because we said that on the show. That on C-SPAN, a couple black men called up, and said that I wouldn't vote for her because some of it was archaic patriarchy. I can't see a woman running the state of Georgia. True. But at the same time, I think that men, and just to let it in, a lot of you women know, but men communicate very what I call it in code. Okay, yeah. All right, for lack of kind of covertly a little bit. Yeah. So he might have put that out there that he couldn't see a woman running Georgia because he can't say what he really felt. What he really felt is the fact that as a black man, I felt like Stacey Abrams' candidacy is her campaign is not for me. See, now why would I say that? Because in the black community, black men, for the most part, there is a reluctance on black men to criticize black women. Don't go by social media. Don't go by simps and all this other kind of stuff. Even they have to hide to do what they do. But the thing of it is that most black men are reluctant to criticize black women and express how they really feel about certain subjects. So I really believe that these black men who were calling up wasn't so much they couldn't see a black men have been known to be the most progressive males in the country. That's true. Not that all of them are, but black men, everybody who studied the subject have come to the conclusion that black men are the most progressive males. Yet we are but the narrative is not that. Exactly. And so the thing is, like, the narrative are that we all deadbeat fathers, and the CDC and others came in and said, no, that's not true. Yet the narrative persists that we're not there for our kids. So I think that black women do a disservice a lot of times by like I said, I understand the black girl magic and all this stuff too, but you're not going to win when you leave out half of the equation. Black men can't win if they leave out half the equation.
Right.
You know what I mean? So how are you going to sit up there and say that Stacey Abrams or any other black woman's campaign is a win for all women, ignoring the black men, and then think that we're going to be successful? No. Politics is about the whole. It's not about whether it's a victory for women or a victory for men. And the situation that we are in as black people, economically, politically, socially, everywhere, we don't have the luxury of sitting here talking about the victory is only for half the population.
Right. Especially when, and we posted several links to this, several stories about this study that has shown that the income gap in the black community between white workers and black workers is driven entirely by the wages of black men. So that that does not mean that black women are not paid less in many instances than white women. It is that black men's wages are so much lower than not just white men's, but black women's too. Why? Because black men are faced with unemployment, mass incarceration, a disenfranchisement from society and the system.
And let's talk
about all of that.
And let's talk about being ignored by the educational system.
Right.
I mean, colleges. I mean, they just now started to think about it. But I mean, colleges wasn't reaching out to black men. I mean, if it wasn't, the only time black men were only important to higher education through athletics.
Right.
If you couldn't run a ball or dunk or anything like that, they wasn't really caring about whether you went there or not. Right.
So I mean, I really feel like we need to be real careful in the politics, in electoral politics when we're talking about campaigns, and I think that if we are going to advocate for black people, we need to be honest about where we're not doing that very well in the campaigns of black people. If there are black men who are leaving out black women's issues from their platforms, we give them hell all day long until they get it right. And we do that with white men.
Right. And a lot of you white women progressives are really the drivers of this stuff. And I say personally, because I remember when Jackie and I started this platform, some of you out there, a lot of y'all don't support us anymore, but some of y'all did. Y'all was like, "Oh, you don't need him."
Yeah. There were a couple of people like, "Oh, you don't need him. You can do this by yourself."
There you go.
Y'all.
Yep.
Listen, the worst thing you can do, cause see, white. That's a whole nother show. But white feminists have already done some damage in the black community in regard to our relationship with each other.
Mind your business.
That's a whole nother show.
Yep,
we'll talk about that in another show, but so that's an issue, right? That among black voters, we have chosen to highlight black male voters who voted for Republicans, but we didn't say anything about the black women. I mean, who voted for the Republican candidates. Mm-hmm. So there was not a 100% support of black voters of any of the Democratic candidates. So my thing is, I got two issues with the way we've approached this. One, that we act like black men aren't doing the same work that black women are doing. Like you said, in every one of those elections, black men's support of the black candidates were just a few percentage points lower than the black women. So
really not enough to even make a deal about it.
So we understand that those people who voted for the Republican candidates, those black people who voted for the Republican candidates, they're not the majority. They're not most of us. It's a very small percentage of us. So why are you making an issue out of it? That's number one.
True.
Right? Because if we know that Candace Owens and Stacey Dash, and at one point, poor thing, Kanye West,
yeah,
and Jim Brown, and all these other black people who support the Republican Party are not representative of most black people. If we know that those people are the minority among us, and we don't pay them too much attention, why are you putting all this attention on this small percentage of people who voted for the Republicans? I thought you said we weren't monolithic. Why do we have to be monolithic on election day, but we're not monolithic any other day? Stop that. It's a disingenuous, hypocritical argument, and people know when you're bullshitting them when you do
exactly.
that.
Exactly.
Then this is the other thing that pisses me off about that. These are the very same people who make a big deal about this, 10, 12, 8, less than 20% of black voters that voted for Republicans. And they come out with this idea that, black people need to vote for the right candidates. Voting, these are the very same people who say that black people need to vote because our ancestors died for the right to vote. If our ancestors died for the right to vote, then I can exercise that right however the hell I want.
Exactly.
If you are telling me that I have to vote a certain way, then it no longer becomes a right. Now it's a mandate. Now it's a requirement that you set. And if you don't want white people doing that, if you don't like Candace Owens saying that black people should leave the Democratic plantation for the Republican plantation, then how do you have the moral authority to stand in black people's face and tell them the exact same thing, but switching the parties around?
Right.
It's not a right if you are telling people who they are supposed to vote for. So that whole, being pissed off at a small percentage of black people who vote for the Republican Party, so what? It's a right. People can vote for whoever the hell they want. And honestly, if you want people to vote for your candidate, then you need to address people's issues. You need to find out if this small percentage of black people concerns these folks that much, find out why they voted for them.
Exactly.
Find out why they voted for them, and then you better have a reason for why your candidates are better. And you're not even going to get a whole lot of satisfaction then, because not everybody is going to agree with you. Because like you said, not just poor voters, but all voters' interest, their first interest is to themselves.
Their first priorities is to them. That's right. Their first responsibility is to themselves and their community. We're the only ones that are taught that we have to put dead people ahead of our own responsibilities and our own concerns right now. Everybody else is talking about, man, we should focus on schools. We should focus on this, focus on that. No, we're told to focus on dead people.
Right.
So. And
it's just, So then the other thing that people say that's been kind of amusing this past few days, these people fetishize voting on this one day, and they talk about, they disparage, the too woke to vote folks, right? And usually the people that they claim are too woke to vote are actually people who are activists, and they're organizers, and they're doing other things and outside of voting.
They're doing the work that those who are criticizing them aren't doing.
That's the thing. That's the thing. It's like these folks who a lot of people who do not fetishize voting, and it might not be that they don't vote. It's just that they don't feel like they have to get into a conversation. So, where people have to, where their actions in regard to voting have to be validated by somebody else.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Have and the audience members out there too. Let me know if you have come across this. Has there ever been any vote shaming of the Amish?
I don't think so.
I was just thinking about. I mean, look, they live in America. They don't fight. They don't fight in wars. They don't pay taxes.
They don't. They don't pledge allegiance to the flag.
So I'm just wondering.
And they don't vote.
Right. So I'm just wondering: has there ever been any vote shaming of the Amish?
You know what? I don't think so.
Were they blamed for Hillary Clinton not winning?
I don't remember anybody blaming the Amish for Hillary not.
I'm just curious, I mean, all this responsibility placed on poor black people. But has anybody ever vote shamed the Amish?
I don't think so.
Because they seem to be doing okay and they're not voting.
That this is true. That's I just didn't even realize that. I was like, wait a minute. They don't vote.
They don't vote at all. Yeah.
They don't. Oh, okay.
Oh,
That's a whole nother.
They don't serve in the military.
They do not serve in the military. We know that they don't play. That they don't.
They don't pay taxes.
They don't. Do they pay taxes?
I'm not sure about that one. You know, seemed like the government got to get something from them.
You would think.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's a good point though. The Amish don't vote. Nobody shames the Amish.
Nope.
For you know, but I mean, it's like the people that these vote fetishizers disparagingly call. I can't get that out of my head now. Disparagingly call too woke to vote folks. A lot of those people are doing things in the community that the vote fetishers don't want to do. Like, vote fetishers, they focus on voting one day a year. Mm-hmm. You know, one day every 2 years, one day every 4 years, right? And a lot of these vote fetishers don't even focus on the interim elections that happen where people live that actually are important, like for sheriff, like for judges, like for city council, like for school board, you know, like for recorder of deeds. All those elected officials, those offices and the things they do matter. They impact how people live every day. But the vote fetishizers, they just talk about the midterms and the presidential election. So, I mean, it's like that's not the only exercise in voting that's important, that affects people's lives. But these are also the very same people who, if you were to advertise a political education workshop, teach-ins, we just went to the Peace Congress.
Yep.
Saturday. Yesterday. I didn't see too many of the vote shaming folks that we know, because we do know some people who live here.
Yeah.
Who would like, no, just you need to vote because your ancestors. Well, how come you can't come to these organizing efforts where people are learning about these systems that they're trying to dismantle, how they can organize and mobilize to dismantle them? And as we are in these systems, yeah, we do talk about what do we do about voting? What do we do with this information as far as the voting booth is concerned? Mm-hmm. You asked that question at the Black is Back Coalition.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. Yeah.
And Chairman Omali Yeshitela said, I mean, listen, we're not going to sit here and tell you not to vote. Now, these are people who have survived the attacks on the Black Revolution from the 60s and the 70s.
They survived COINTELPRO.
They survived COINTELPRO, and by survived, I do mean they escaped being imprisoned by the FBI and the CIA. And there was a woman there who was the daughter of a member of the Black Panther Party who is in prison right now.
Yeah, sure is.
Right now. And we need to share that information because he is being denied medical treatment. So these people are still considered enemies of the state. But Chairman Omali Yeshitela said, I'm not going to tell you that you shouldn't vote. I'm not going to tell you who to vote for. I'm just going to tell you that when you vote, make sure that candidate is focused on Black policies. We have a 19-point plan. You take that plan and you show it to. I mean, so these people.
And you know, and we've been saying this on the show all the time. You know, every time you put Black behind something, people always look at it as dangerous or it's subversive. If this is that, and you know, our agenda is no different. Well, I mean, what I'm saying is we have an agenda. Every group has an agenda. We talked about the LGBTQ agenda. You know, what was important to them and how they the activism that went behind that. We spoke about Native Americans and the Dreamers and everything else. So I mean, so us having an agenda is not something out of the ordinary. The fact that we haven't supported our own agenda is what's sad.
Oh, I'm so glad you brought that up.
That's what's sad. We haven't supported our own agenda.
I'm so glad you brought that up because that brings me to the next thing that annoys me to no end about these vote fetishizing people, especially Black folks who are vote fetishizers. So we just did Wilmer Leon's show Saturday, right, on Sirius XM Radio, and that was really interesting because Dr. Leon had like this list of stuff that he wanted to talk about. And the midterms was one of those things. But we could not get past people being pissed off at him because he made, he said something they didn't like about something Michelle Obama said. And He's going to send us the link to the show. You're going to have to listen to it for yourselves. He wasn't disrespectful. He wasn't disparaging. His criticism was of policy of the Obama administration. But here's the thing that pisses me off about these vote-shaming Negroes. Y'all will shame poor black people for not voting. But when we vote and we criticize black politicians who aren't doing anything for us after we have voted for them, then y'all get pissy. Then y'all get an attitude, and Barack Obama is the perfect example.
Yep.
There is no better example of this ridiculous ass phenomenon than the presidency of Barack Obama. See, because black people voted for Barack Obama at historic levels. I mean, almost nearly 100% of black people voted for Barack Obama at nearly 100%.
And we know the four blacks who didn't.
It was Armstrong Williams, Herman Cain,
Ben Carson. Yeah, we know. And
probably Condoleezza Rice.
Right. We know the four blacks that didn't.
I mean, so look. So black people vote for Barack Obama at historic levels. Almost all black people did. And then as soon as black people started to criticize the fact that he wasn't doing anything for black people, what did black people start to do? Oh, you can't criticize him.
Right.
And Saturday, there were so many people who called who still had that same mentality that you can't criticize what he did.
Or what he didn't do.
Or what he didn't do for black people. So I'm just really confused by these vote fetishizers who are telling poor black people that it's our responsibility to the ancestors, to black people, you know, because whatever reason they have that we're all supposed to vote. And when we're like, okay, we're going to vote, but then because I voted, I need to hold the people I voted for accountable because I expect something from my vote. Then the very same vote fetishizers are telling us, no, you can't do that. Who does that? Well, no other group of people in this country does that.
You know, I thought that it was so silly during the Obama administration. All these black folks like Steve Harvey and all them coming out there telling us to vote for Obama. And yet, when some of us expected him to do something, then the other Negro whisperers came at us and was like, yeah, but if he do something for black people, they'll kill him. I mean, this was actually said.
People actually said it.
Oh, he can't do nothing for us. They'll kill him. You know what I mean? The Republicans won't let him do it. You know, and so so now the message was, okay, we got him in there, but don't expect nothing.
Right.
You know, because really he can't do anything for us because white people are more powerful than the president of the United States, and so he can't do anything. You know, and man, I was so angry about that. And then what turns around is that everybody now, when you criticize Obama and Michelle, who I believe they're making into the new national mammy, that's the role that they're building for. So you know, and I said this before. I think Michelle Obama is really becoming a really dangerous symbol in this country if we don't rein her in. See, we got to have a talk with her. See, we do. We have to have a talk with her and say, stop lulling these white folks to sleep.
Exactly.
Stop lulling them to sleep and make it seem like everything is okay. This is not the Jeffersons.
This isn't the Jeffersons. Everything is not all right with us. Everything is not all right with us.
And so anyway, now she, you know, it's funny because now she's getting on there talking about, you know, girls this and girls that. But when you was the first lady, you had the bully pulpit. The same criticism I have for her as I have for her husband. Her husband did not use the power of the office to address our needs, nor did we make him. And then now you had his wife, who also had the bully pulpit of the first lady, and she was the most popular first lady.
Yes, she was.
See, that's the thing. She, even more than him, she wasted her capital because she wasn't bogged down by a lot of the baggage that her husband was bogged down with by him being the president. She still remained popular amongst white women and everything else. But yet, instead of fighting for black women issues, instead of fighting for the issues of black girls that she claims she cared about so much, what did she do? She fought for fat kids. She confronted childhood obesity and stuff. So, you know, and that really bothered me because I'm saying you come from Chicago. You know, surely you know the problems that black girls and black women are going through. Now you're in the White House. You have the office. You have Barack's ear. You know, all this stuff. But no, you know, the Obama's a part of the elite bourgeoisie, and you see it even more so now. But what I was saying is the fact that even when we criticize him, they said Obama was weak, he couldn't do anything, and feeding into the white supremacist narrative again that we think we're protecting him. But now Trump is there, and Trump is Zeus.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, he's the
he's
president.
up on Mount Olympus throwing thunderbolts down and shaking the foundation of the earth. And,
exactly.
you know, Trump can't not do whatever the heck he wants. But somehow Barack Obama couldn't do anything.
Oh, he couldn't do anything.
He couldn't do anything. I mean, it's just, oh my God. It's like, come on now. You're going to tell me that I have to vote no matter what. And then when we go vote, then you're going to tell me we can't criticize the politicians when they don't do anything.
Right.
When they don't give us anything for our vote. No. And people see through that. People see through it. So what's the answer? What is the answer to all this?
We've been saying the answer throughout the show.
We've been telling you the answers throughout the whole show. We're not here to tell people
whether
they should vote.
I do want to say one thing about the question. I think Lisa Webb asked about should there be a vote holdout or something?
Yeah, a vote boycott.
All right. Well, personally, I won't tell you what to do with your vote. I don't think vote boycotts work. And I think a lot of boycotts in this new modern age doesn't work. I'm for boycotts. They have been successful. But I think that without an aggressive organizing, without organization,
right,
no boycott will work.
True.
So you know, so this, you know, I mean, Jackie and I had participated, or at least tried to participate in these flash mob boycotts and the boycotts that a lot of black groups try to do, and they're never successful. You know why? Because there's a problem with organizing. You know, people get these ideas in their head, and they feel like, oh, and they spread it through social media and think everybody's going to follow that. Right. Boycotts only work through, first, political education. Boycotts work through political education because you got to know why you're boycotting. Exactly. And political education, and there has to be organization. Right. So without education and organization, no boycott will work.
Right. And that organization, I mean, we look at the Montgomery boycott, Montgomery bus boycott, as the perfect example, because it is the perfect example of how boycotts work and why they work. Because people were committed to the purpose of the boycott, which was to end segregation on public transportation in Montgomery, Alabama. They were organized in what they were going to do to replace, for the people in the community, to replace the thing that they were boycotting. So when people stopped riding the bus, then the cab drivers offered rides for people for 10 cents, because that's how much it cost to get on the bus. Then some white people who were the employers of some of the, especially the housekeepers, the black housekeepers, they volunteered to pick their employees up and take them home.
And they caught hell from the Klan too.
They caught hell. Those white people caught hell from the Klan too.
That's right.
And there were constant meetings, organizing meetings in churches and in other places. And yes, a lot of those meetings white folks weren't invited to because those people's lives were at stake, so they couldn't have all that information out there. So all y'all white folks now who are all pissed off at black people organizing and having meetings without white people present, y'all need to get over yourselves. We've had to do that for decades, for centuries, because some of y'all are you just don't know how to shut up. I mean, we know that's true with some of us, so we know that's true with, so that's organizing. And people were committed to the cause. The Montgomery bus boycott lasted more than a year. It lasted more than a year. Too many people today expect change to happen. It's a microwave generation.
And it probably and it lasted a year, but it probably took a year to organize.
It took a long time to organize all of that.
Thing.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't. I'm sure it wasn't like somebody came up and said, decided, hey, we should boycott the buses, and I'm sure everybody was not like, yeah, let's do that. They had to get buy-in for that. They had to educate people into why this was, why this needed to be done, and it gathered steam along the way. So this is not something that just can be done overnight, and we expect results. That's not how revolution works. This is why voting doesn't change things.
Not alone.
Not alone.
Not by itself.
Because revolution doesn't happen overnight. It just, the French Revolution wasn't, people just didn't get up one day and be like, you know what? Fuck this queen. Fuck this. Fuck them in that palace. And everybody was like, yeah, fuck them. No, it was years.
And let's face it. The French Revolution, it cost some people their heads.
Yeah.
it was bloody.
It was bloody.
And so, so when we're talking, and just like we spoke about the white union workers down in Tennessee that took up arms against the state because they were protecting their jobs. So, they didn't want to be undermined by slave labor, which the convict leasing system was. So, there are times in this movement, man, where people had to resort to those type of measures in order to get the government to listen. We have said on Luqman Nation all the time that, people in power always tell us to be peaceful when we protest. That is so they can continue to ignore us.
Exactly.
It's always the squeaky wheel that gets the oil.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And the fact remains is, people always want you to talk about voting, and that's our constitutional right. Well, so is our constitutional right to bear arms. But bear arms in a responsible way. And what happened is that sometimes the state don't listen to you, and I might get in trouble for this, but sometimes the state doesn't listen to you, but that's why that provision is in there. You know what I mean? So we could take the thing about voting, but trust me, folks, stop coming to our community and telling us that everything will magically get better if we just vote. No, tell the whole story. The whole story is voting is just one tool in the toolbox. But the rest of the tools, you got to get in their faces, and you got to agitate for change, or what'll happen will get the Obama effect.
Exactly. And Juliet Leak brought up a great point about Michelle Obama over here on YouTube. She said Michelle did not speak out about school closings in Chicago. You know why? Because it didn't affect her girls.
Well, that's what we've been saying.
That's what we've been saying.
That's what we've been saying.
If we are going to focus all of this importance on voting, not saying that voting isn't important, because voting can be one agent of change for certain issues. Here's a great example. Amendment 4 in Florida. Amendment 4 was just passed just last week, the midterms in Florida. Of all places, Amendment 4 restored the right to vote for formerly convicted felons.
Yes,
in Florida.
Yes. Let's celebrate that. Let's celebrate that.
Now, that is where voting changed people's access to their rights. But here's something that needs to be made very clear about Amendment 4. Amendment 4 wasn't put on the ballot by any political party. It wasn't the Democrats who said, you know what, we need to push this. Let's put this on the ballot. No, what happened was regular everyday people, a formerly convicted felon, was angry that he was not allowed to vote because of his felony conviction. And he started grassroots community activism, organization, political education, mobilization to educate people who were like him about the need to address this. Then this person started educating people who, in the community, who didn't experience being convicted of a felony, and explaining to them why it was important. And I'm sure this probably wasn't the first time it was on the ballot. I'm sure it was probably on the ballot before. Maybe it wasn't voted for. Maybe it wasn't mandated.
Right.
It wasn't approved by the voters before. But they kept trying. See, voting changes nothing if all you're voting for is a political party. If you are voting on issues that affect people's lives, that's a different story. If you're voting for ballot measures or ballot referendums that address a specific issue, legalization of marijuana, there should be a ballot initiative in several states about mandating that the local police departments are not trained by the Israeli army. The 1033 program needs to be abolished. That needs to be a ballot initiative. Those are things that we don't have to wait for a political party to address, to put on a ballot for people to vote for. We can do that. That's where voting is the most powerful. But all this business about, vote for a vote only so that we can vote for one politician who's the representative of a party so we can stop the other politician who's the representative of the other party, that's not enough.
Exactly.
That is absolutely not enough, because, see, the Democrats, most of the Democratic candidates for governor and mayor, and especially the national potential candidates, they're not anti-war.
Right, that's right.
They are just as warmongering and bloodthirsty for war for oil as the Republicans are. War directly affects you and me and all of us. So we'll vote blue no matter who. Why? Because they're just as likely to start a war as the Republicans are.
That's right.
The Democrats aren't pro-Palestine. They aren't for the liberation of the Palestinian people. So they're just as likely to take money from AIPAC and continue to support the apartheid state in Israel as the Republicans are.
Exactly.
And Democrats are not pro-black. I'm sorry, even a lot of the black ones, they are not willing to put forth an agenda that includes, like you say all the time, a Marshall Plan specifically for Black America, even though the historical need for that is clear as day. So that's why I believe that, voting for a candidate, I don't think that's as important. I see that there is the need, like I said on the Real News Network, I understand the argument for harm mitigation, right? You want to stop the Republican Party from causing the overt harm by voting for the Democrat. So at least they're not going to do the awful things that the Republicans were doing. All right, I get that, and I have no judgments on people for voting for people because of that. What I am saying is, we need to go beyond just voting for politicians and political parties. And we need to understand that as citizens, if we're going to focus all this attention on voting, then we need to use that in a different way, through ballot initiatives, through amendments, through community and people focused and powered organization and mobilization efforts that gets these referendums and initiatives on our ballots so we can vote on issues that the major parties won't pay any attention to. Unless these vote shaming folks are going to do that, then shut the fuck up. Honestly, shut up about people who don't vote.
Yeah, I like, we're about ready to close, but I want to save a few minutes to read some of the comments from our viewers.
Yeah, please.
And I'm glad you said something about the demographics of voting, because if I can find this, George Haydak had a very good point, if I could find it, because I'm scrolling through some of you guys' comments. And well, anyway, George had made the point. He said 40% of this country is not voting. Why shame 5% demographics?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I mean, thank you.
Right.
Thank you for that, George. Thank you for that, George. Black people are 14% of the population. Around 14%, give or take. That's all of us. That's babies, old people, everybody.
Those incarcerated.
Those incarcerated, everybody. That's 14% of the population. White people are 80-something odd percent. So the vast majority of people who do not vote in this country are white.
Exactly.
So I just really, and that just goes back to my belief that black people who vote shame black people who don't vote are doing it from a very white supremacist, racist perspective of pathologizing the bad behavior of black people. Like, y'all stop that shit. Y'all go vote shame some of those white people. Stop.
So what you got on YouTube?
So what do I have on YouTube? Oh, Lisa Webb asked, whatever happened to Tavis Smiley's Black Agenda? Black people threw Tavis Smiley away when he criticized Barack Obama. That's what happened to Tavis Smiley.
Then he came under attack for the sexual
harassment. Then he came under attack for sexual harassment, which has never been proven.
Right.
And we never heard anything else about it because I don't think there was anything to the allegations.
Right,
Actually,
right.
I don't think they can find anything to it.
But see what happens within the black community. We've seen this a lot. That black people, we're so quick to throw our own people away, especially if they get one dink or two dinks against them, and all they got to do is just have any allegations against them, and we're willing to throw them away.
Yep.
So I think that's what happened with Tavis.
I do think so.
But let me add one other point. Tavis Smiley's Black Agenda report. For me, I used to take it seriously. Then it just started being entertainment.
Yeah, it was the state of Black America, it was like the State of the Union. Yeah, the State of the Black Union. That's what it was called. And I would watch it every year.
Me too.
It was good stuff at first, but then after a while, it just became like
everybody was trying to outdo one another in speeches.
Pretty much.
Yeah, it was
pretty much.
It just devolved into entertainment.
Yeah, because none of those people. Like I said, like we sit here and say all the time, that none of those people took those ideas and challenged power with any of those.
Not at all.
They just they
did was just regurgitate problems. That's all they did.
I mean, they did, and I think there's a place for that. But if you're not going to take those issues to the people who have the power to address them, then really, like you said, all they're doing is entertainment. Yep. It's poverty porn. That's what it was.
All right, so over here on Facebook, Lynn Mack.
Lynn, what's going on?
Yeah, Lynn said had a good suggestion for people who don't really have anybody they want to vote for. She said every state should have the none of the above option for each election, and every race they have. Every race. She said they have it in Nevada. So
wow,
right.
That's interesting because Juliet Leak also said over here on YouTube, "What about voting for none of the above?"
I'm for that.
I like that.
Yeah, I'm for that.
I like it. I like it. So over here on YouTube, Traditional European. I love y'all's screen names. That's funny. He said to think that all the times I thought of people who don't vote were ignorant when it was actually me.
Well, that's how I felt.
Yep.
I felt that too. And it was the same way with the immigrant situation. I used to be, especially in my early career as a truck driver, I was the same way. The reason why our wages haven't gone up because these Latino truck drivers and others, they accept, they're willing to accept less money. That was wrong, and that was ignorant, and that was the line that capitalism told us.
Yep.
And it wasn't until I realized that that everybody's wages were stagnant in this country for quite a while. And, so you can't tell me that the immigrants went and invaded all those jobs.
and the immigrants weren't going to anybody's job and saying, look, you're going to give me this job and I will take less money or else. Exactly. That's not how it works.
That's just ignorant.
No. We did
one more
talk.
And then we got to end.
Yeah, so Lisa, we did talk about the Amendment 4 in Florida.
Yeah,
we talked about that. And you're right. That now, and we're going to end on this. That's the kind of thing, the non-party focused, people powered ballot referendums, ballot initiatives, amendments that people who are working outside of either political party are able to get on ballots for people to vote for, and they do that through years of grassroots activism, organization, and mobilization. Lisa's right. That one ballot initiative alone is going to turn Florida blue for the next few generations.
That's true.
Because in Florida, we're talking about, just in Florida alone, over 1 million formally convicted felons who are now able to vote.
But that's only if, and I'm playing devil's advocate here, those who they're going to have to be engaged. What I'm saying is, it's okay to have the ability to vote, but if politics, if they're not engaged, you know what I mean, then it doesn't mean anything.
Exactly, because the worst thing that can happen is that this over 1 million people who are now able to vote, and nobody pays any attention to these people until 6 weeks before the election.
But that's what I'm saying. Now is the time to organize them.
Exactly.
This is the time to organize them right now. Keep them engaged.
Precisely. So, look. It is. We've been on here for 1 hour and 54 minutes, and we thank y'all so much for hanging out with us tonight. There was something else I wanted to say, but I'll remember it on another show.
Share this live stream.
Share the stream.
Yep.
Share this video on YouTube. Y'all invite your friends to subscribe to our page on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook. Follow us on, like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter. There's a lot of stuff the Luqmans are doing that are coming up. And we can't even tell you about a lot of those things yet because they're in the planning phases and we have not gotten the green light to publicize some of these things. But I cannot even tell you how excited we are about one of these things. But look, y'all, thank you so much for all of your support. As always, if you can support Luqman Nation through monthly contributions through Patreon, we'd appreciate it. But if you can't, that's great. A one-time donation through GoFundMe.
We'd rather have you than your money.
Yeah, we would rather have you sharing this content, bringing more people to Luqman Nation so we can do more of this work to just sit and talk and share some knowledge. We just really appreciate y'all so much. So have a great night. Happy Armistice Day to all of the veterans out there. Our wish is to have rich people stop creating wars that poor people fight, that we have to honor them for fighting.
Exactly.
So, y'all be real good to each other. And as always, always, peace. Oh, he's awake.
Yeah.
Our dog. He's awake.